Look at Disney today. Disney World, Disneyland, Disney films, Disney songs, Disney characters. But was this all that Disney ever was? In 1923, Walt Disney's creation of the Disney Brothers cartoon studio signaled a new era in America's animation industry. However, Disney's changed from a studio specializing in the production of entertainment videos to a wartime studio utilized by the American government to create propaganda videos, posters, and leaflets proved to be a turning point in world history. This change of Disney was a pivotal event in history because not only did Disney provide entertainment, but it also started to serve a deeper purpose to unite America and dehumanize its enemies to help bring victory. In World War II, 90% of Disney's 550 employees were involved in making wartime videos for the government.
Certainly Walt Disney helped. His films certainly contributed. His animators made great contributions in producing those films. Many on the Disney staff were drafted and contributed as soldiers. Troops were stationed at times on the Disney studio lot.
But when did this involvement begin? On December 7, 1941, with the Pearl Harbor bombing, Disney animators and the rest of the nation were drawn into war. Because the attack on Pearl Harbor had been so abrupt, Disney created a myriad of posters with the slogan, "Keep Awake," with an image of a ribbon tied around a finger. This was a symbol created to remember the incident, so that America could be aware of any other imminent attacks. The poster also caricatured Hirohito, the Japanese emperor, on the poster to clearly portray the Japanese in a negative light. At the urging of the US government, Disney began to create anti-German and anti-Japanese films for both the US Armed Forces and the public.
The beautiful princess is Germany. And the brave, handsome knight, you know who he is.
Heil Hitler!
The film's initial goal was to portray these countries as manipulative regimes that abused their people's liberty. Walt Disney used the figurehead method to serve this purpose. They chose one figurehead of a whole party to criticize. In order to lampoon America's enemies, Disney often caricatured the Axis powers leaders, Hirohito, Mussolini, and Hitler, in order to satirize them. Propaganda films such as Der Führer's Face, which won the Oscar for the Best Animated Short Film and was voted as the 22nd best cartoon of all time, shed the German Nazis in a negative light. In this film, Donald Duck has a dream that he is working in a Nazi factory. The film dehumanizes Hitler and the Nazis and portrays them as cruel, heartless people who work their workers to exhaustion or even death. These subtle portrayals had profound effects. Antagonizing enemies made it easier for Americans to oppose the Axis powers because the images made the foes look less human and thus easier to hate. In the end, these short films made it easier for Americans to sympathize with US soldiers while creating a feeling of responsibility to overturn fascism. Because nationalism is a very important element during wartime, Disney aided the Allies significantly. In many of Disney's short animation films, America's enemies are repeatedly bashed by Disney characters. The repetition of these films almost had a brainwashing effect on Americans who were led to believe that it was necessary to crush America's enemies and that Americans were winning World War II. Not only did Disney make a mockery of the Axis powers, but it also showed how people lived or worked under the corrupt regimes. For example, in the Walt Disney cartoon Education for Death, Walt Disney shows how Hitler came to power and how the German public was being brainwashed by the Nazi Party.
Now he's a good Nazi. He sees no more than the party wants him to. He says nothing but what the party wants him to say. And he does nothing but what the party wants him to do.
This cartoon boosted American morale by suggesting that Americans were living in a superior society than the Germans were.
Oh, boy! Am I glad to be a citizen of the United States of America? Oh.
At Homefront, the Treasury Department depended most on Disney's productions. In order to finance the war, the government used Disney short films, posters, and leaflets to encourage American citizens to buy war bonds. The war finance committees in charge of the loan drives sold a total of $185.7 billion of securities. According to Duke University, by the end of World War II, over 85 million Americans had invested in war bonds, a number unmatched by any other country. Not only did these propaganda posters and videos encourage buying war bonds, but it also promoted citizens to pay their taxes. During the years of war, the payment of taxes was more important than ever before because the income was used to help fund the war. It is estimated that around 26 million Americans have viewed Disney's films. According to a poll, 37% of the audience admitted that their willingness to pay higher taxes was influenced by these videos. The Victory March was an interactive mechanical book released in 1942, directed to an audience of young people to encourage them to purchase savings stamps. In the poster, each Disney character symbolizes something war-related. Economic stability is important for a nation at war. Thus, these videos that promoted paying taxes and buying war bonds boosted the American economy during the war, helping to bring victory. There was always a hidden story in the posters published by Disney. During wartime, the characters, plot, and every intricate detail of the film were there for a specific purpose. Another segment that Walt Disney focused on in Homefront was encouraging the American people to save food for soldiers who were at battle. Providing enough food for soldiers during war could mean the difference between victory and defeat. The US government relied on Disney to produce short films to persuade and instruct the public on how to save food for the war. For example, the government requested the public to collect leftover food oil in order to make ammunition for the war. One of the most important civilian war efforts were the Victory Gardens. Victory Gardens were private residence gardens that the denizens tended for growth of fruits and vegetables. These gardens lessened pressure on the public food source because more people were eating food directly from their gardens instead of the nearby market. Consequently, the food saved could be sent to the soldiers. Walt Disney's advertisements allowed the US government to organize and distribute food rations so that it could wage the war more efficiently. This also created better conditions for the fighting soldiers. Some Disney films directly encouraged men to draft into the army. Often viewed as something that men would prefer to avoid, in Donald Gets Drafted, Disney depicts enlisting in the army as a privilege and an honor. The music chants,
"The Army's not the Army anymore. It's better than it's ever been before,"
and sings how much more friendly and easy the army has become. In the film, Donald Duck is seen walking down a sidewalk where emotionally appealing posters promote joining the army. Then, Donald Duck proceeds to the office where he submits his conscription paper, as if showing the American public how easy it is to be enlisted as a soldier. Donald Duck's confident and enthusiastic demeanor portrays how proud he is to fight for his country. Such propaganda motivated more men to conscript into the war. Although the short animated films Disney made for the public seemed like entertaining videos about the war, many of them were actually instructional videos for the public in disguise. In the new spirit, Donald Duck is instructed on how to submit income taxes to fund the government's war efforts.
First, your name, address, and occupation. Next, list your dependents. Now, what was your income?
Not only does the video give step-by-step instructions on how to pay these taxes through the voice of the radio, but it also appeals emotionally to the patriotic sentiments of the American public.
Are you a patriotic American?
Yes, sir.
By using Donald Duck and other Disney characters in various animations, the government indirectly instructed the public on how to contribute to the war effort. Although many people do not recognize Disney's influence on World War II, it played an instrumental role in uniting America to win the war. Disney's impact on the war is apparent even today. Many of the classic characters that are loved by the American public today were once lobbyists for the Americans' involvement in World War II. Disney's involvement in the war proved to be a turning point. It established America's dominance over global culture, both politically and socially. The war effort not only contributed to the Allies' victory, but it also changed the fate of the Walt Disney Animation Studio. Never before had animation producers participated as actively in a war campaign as Disney did. During the years of the war, the studio was propelled to a nationwide fame. Yet, that wasn't the end of Disney's heyday. Disney's magic that was used during World War II opened the path to a whole new world of propaganda. According to Dr. Richard Allen Shale,
Walt was smart enough to realize that when the war was over, the war-themed cartoons would become very dated. However, his cartoons that did not contain war references could be shown for years on television or in re-release.
one of the largest and most original motion picture companies in history, Disney continues to shape and influence the minds of all people around the world, as it did in World War II.